Here we go. Okay. I think my mic is on right now. Almost forgot to put it on. That would not have been good. Let me check again. Yep, I think it's on. Give me a thumbs up if you could hear me. So, first of all, Boker Tov. Good morning. On this fine Sunday morning, let's start the day as we usually do, or start the class with a mitzvah of giving tzedakah to elicit and bring forth Hashem's blessing in this class. So, the title of the class, when thinking of a title, you want to, on the one hand, be sort of honest on what the subject is going to be. At the same time, a title has to be something that's going to make you want to listen to Torah. The objective is to share Torah. So I will be straightforward with my friends here that the title of the class is something I'll touch upon, but that's not my main objective today. Okay, so just want to be clear from the outset, and let's give a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niya b'dvaro. We're ending the secular year 2023. We're entering into 2024, and people ask. Let me switch over here. Sorry, let me shut off the dividers. Please bear with. I mean the what to do. Shutting the notifications because that will just interrupt us. Okay, so we have the divide in this country, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Maybe we'll give in the future. 2024 is definitely going to be a more heated political year. I have some advice to both myself and to others regarding that. Let me get straight to the advice. The advice is try to pay as little attention as possible. Unless you're undecided who to vote for, try to pay as little attention as possible. Turn off those either news outlets or podcasts or notifications that you're constantly being bombarded with, because it makes no difference until election in just under a year from now. And all it's going to do is aggravate you, waste your time, get your stress level up, v'chulu, as we say in Hebrew, etc., etc. I recommend to both myself and to others to just turn it off. Turn it off. You cannot make a difference until the actual election. Now, if you're undecided who to vote for and you want to find out more information, okay, that's a different story. But if you're one of those, as probably most Americans who have already decided who to vote for, then just turn it off. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, the parsha, the Torah portion. We're going to get back to this discussion a little bit about the political divide. Again, with the objective. The objective over here is not to talk about politics, and I refrain to talk about politics, but more what the Torah's message is to us to make us better people, to create a better world, etc. So, in this past week's portion, we read Vayigash. We read about the climactic meeting between Joseph and his brothers, led by Judah, as he approaches Joseph, which at the time to his knowledge, was the viceroy of Egypt, did not realize that his brother, and he steps up to defend his brother Benjamin, to defend his brother Binyamin. And I want to preface this with a story. There's a classic Jewish modern story about an American very wealthy businessman who goes to visit Israel. And it's not uncommon even today that American Jews, especially those who are successful, are supporters of his causes in Israel. I read one was about a week ago that over $1 billion has been supported in one way or another by Americans for the war that's going on in Israel now. And although the war is in Israel, it's really a war against Jews throughout the world by anti-Semites, not by all, but by anti-Semites. So American philanthropy for Israel-specific causes is legendary. So this fellow, this wealthy businessman, is in Israel. He's visiting, and he meets somebody that is extremely poor, strong poverty, and starts a discussion, starts to schmooze with him. And in that schmoozing, he tells him, the poor Jew tells his fellow from the United States, they're schmoozing, and they ask about their families, and he says, look, I have a house full of kids, and I struggle to put food on the table. So the American businessman says to him, I want to offer you a deal. I want to offer you a sek, a deal, as we say in Hebrew. The deal that I want to offer to you is that you have lots of kids. I have been blessed with a lot of money, but sadly, I have not been blessed with any kids. How about you allow me to adopt one of your kids? I'll take care with the greatest love and comfort, and in return, I will sponsor you and your entire family in comfort for the rest of your life. Guy says, look, what's so terrible? I say this totally on a humorous side. We all have a child that, maybe, perhaps. Again, just kidding around. But he says, you know what? Come to my house, pick a child. I have, thank God, 10 children. Go ahead, a deal. Okay, they make up a time. He'll come to his home. And he comes to the house and he sees a bunch of kinderlach, and he says to this, he says, okay, I'm ready. I'll take this one. What's his name? His name is Yosela. Father looks at little Yosela and he says, Yosela? Can't take Yosela. He says, why not? You said you have 10 children. He says, yeah, I have 10 children, but I only have one Yosela. Let me turn this off. Sorry. Here we go. He says, but I only have one Yosela. No, can't take Yosela. He says, okay. Looks around. He goes into another room. He sees another child playing. He says, okay, let me take this child. He says, this is my Shimon. I only have one Shimon. I don't have 10 children. I have one Shimon. Sorry, can't do it. And sure enough, the deal fell apart because every child that he picked, he says, I only have one Shimon. I only have one Yosel. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh. Let me back up. In this dramatic, emotional description of Torah, of the whole story of Joseph and his brothers, I don't know if there's any other sort of family story that the Torah gives such a detail. And if you read the Torah, you read the story, you read the narrative in the last few portions that we read on Shabbat, there's so much emotions, there's crying, there's tension, there is a buildup. It's hard if you're reading the story not to get caught up in the emotions and sort of get drawn into the details of what's going on over here, and not to be moved when Judah. I'll read it to you just very quickly. After Joseph, and I guess I'm assuming that for the most part you know the story. After Joseph plants frames Benjamin, the youngest of the children, the youngest of the sons, that Jacob did not want to allow to go down to Egypt. He was very reluctant. He actually said no, but Joseph left him with no choice. And then Joseph goes ahead and he frames Benjamin with with placing his goblet, his expensive goblet, his sort of magical goblet, into the package of Benjamin. And he says to the brothers, he says, you know what? You guys could all go home. Benjamin is the thief. He will become my slave. And in this week's Torah portion, we see, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a bit too long, but then instead of saying, okay, fine, deal, you take Benjamin, he's guilty, as charged, we're going to go back to dad. Says the Torah, says the Parsha that we just read, then Judah approached him, meaning Joseph, and he said, please, my master, your servant now wants to say something to which I hope my master will listen. And he says to him, I'm skipping a little bit, he says to him, you said to your servants, bring him down to me so I can see him for myself, meaning Benjamin. We said to my master, meaning Joseph Judah, who is representing the brothers, addressing the viceroy of Egypt, who he does not know is Joseph. We said to my master, the boy cannot leave his father, for if he leaves his father, we are concerned that he will die. You said to your servants, if your youngest brother doesn't come down with you, you'll never see my face again. This is in the Parsha, in the Torah, in the biblical story of Joseph and his brothers. Then we went up to your servant, my father, and we told him the words of my master. Our father said, go back and buy us a bit of food. We said, we can't go down. We'll go down if our youngest brother is with us, because the man won't let us see him if our youngest brother isn't with us. This is all what Judah is passionately telling Joseph. Your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife, Rachel, bore me 2 children. One of them has departed from me, meaning Joseph. And I said, he must have been ripped apart again and again. And I haven't seen him since. 22 years this is. If you'll take this one away from me, 2, on a fatal accident occurs to him, you'll bring my old age to the grave in grief. I'm skipping, although there's some beautiful, passionate words. It says, Joseph couldn't bear that all the Egyptians were standing beside him, so he called out, take everyone away from me. He wept so loudly, Joseph that is, that the whole household of Pharaoh heard. Joseph then said to his brothers the famous words, I am Joseph, is my father still alive? But his brothers were unable to answer him because they were ashamed before him. Various reasons for the shame, but first and foremost because they sold him. They left him for dead, basically. They totally abandoned him. Joseph said to his brothers, please come closer to me. They drew closer. He said, I am your brother Yosef, whom you sold to Egypt. But now don't be upset or angry with yourselves that you sold me to this place. God sent me ahead of you, for it is 2 years now that there's a famine in the land, and I'm here to help with the famine. Now, last week we spoke a little bit about this, and I want to add another perspective as a continuation, and then as every single teaching of the Torah has its teachings to our modern, today's world, collectively, individually. Let's talk about it. And then I will try to draw some connection to the political sort of the passionate divide in this country. Some suggestions. Let's first analyze. Yosef says to his brothers in the first words, 22 years, a whole buildup accusing them of spies, the emotional turmoil that he puts them through, the pain that he puts them through, he puts his father through by taking Shimon, locking him up, forcing Jacob to send Benjamin, putting literally Jacob's life on the line. He does all that. Then he says, I am Joseph. And he then follows with a question. He says, Ha'od avichai, is my father still alive? It's a very strange question. I mean, the entire story up to this point in his dialogue with his brothers, the father, Jacob, is constantly brought into the discussion of why they came down to Egypt, why he should not force them to bring Benjamin, why Judah stands up and he says these very, very famous words, which I skipped, which I left out, in his passionate plea to Joseph. He says the following. He says, here, where is that word over here? He says in verse 32, now, in parentheses, why am I, Judah, speaking up rather than all the brothers? He says the following. He says, because I, your servant, I'll say it in Hebrew, Ki avdecha arav et hanar, I took responsibility for the lad. The only reason my father Jacob said, I'm going to let Benjamin go down with you, is only after I said to my father Jacob, Anochi a'ervenu, I will take full responsibility. Bear with me over here. So the question is that Joseph says, I'm your brother Joseph. Okay, that makes sense. Is my father still alive? Ha'oda vichai. What's the deeper meaning over here? Many explanations. I'm going to mention a couple of the explanations. Some of them which is not part of the general theme of what I want to discuss here. One famous answer to this question that Joseph says, Ha'oda vichai, was somewhat of a bit of a reprimand to the brothers. Ha'oda vichai, is my father still alive, is not him asking if my father is alive or dead. He's asking, how can it be that my father is still alive? After 22 years of such deep mourning, and Rashi even tells us from the Talmud that because Joseph wasn't actually dead, so Vayimahen litnachem, Yaakov never really found comfort. The Talmud says that God made it so that a human being at some point comes to terms with death so that he could move on. You don't totally heal from it, but you come to terms on some level. The words of the Talmud says, "Shetishtakach min halev," that the heart somewhat heals somewhat. But because Joseph was actually alive, Yaakov never healed from that pain. Imagine having like a fresh open wound. We can't imagine. Baruch Hashem, thank God, we can't even imagine. Unfortunately, tragically, now in Israel, and others who have experienced the deepest pain a human being can experience, the loss of a child. But Yaakov had that open wound for 22 years. And Yosef is asking, Ha'od avichai, is my father still alive? Meaning, not is he not dead, but how is it possible that he could carry on and be alive? I remember reading sort of a description of someone that lost a child. I don't remember where I read this, and the way the person described it is the light went on in that person, the light went out in that person's eye. It was the sparkle of life that that individual person who lost a child had before the tragic loss of their child. That light was gone forever. That light was gone. Loss of a child. And here, Yaakov, so that was his question. Ha'od avichai, is my father alive? But that's one of the explanations. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh, some of you who are familiar with commentary on the Parsha know, and I've heard of the Or HaChaim, famous Reb Chaim ben Attar, who is buried on Har HaZeitim, Mount Olives, famous commentary on the Torah. And the Or HaChaim gives an insight a little bit into this story, which is very beautiful and profound and simple yet at the same time. When Yosef, I'm going to take my Chumash over here. I'm going to go back to Parshat Vayeshev. Vayeshev is the portion that we read where Yosef is actually sold by his brothers. So over there, right after Yosef is sold, so here, let me find the verse. Here it is. Okay, so here. This is right after Yosef is sold. It says, they took Joseph's robe, that's the famous special robe that Jacob gave to Joseph, which in the simple reading of the parsha was part of the reason that caused the jealousy between Joseph and his brothers. Obviously, there was a lot more going on over here. They took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a young goat, and dipped the robe into the blood. They sent the fine woolen coat with messengers who brought it to their father. They said, "We have found this. Please, could you identify if this is your son's coat or not?" He recognized it and he said, "It's my son's coat," meaning Jacob proclaimed that and recognized that this is my son Joseph's, my beloved's son's coat. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has been ripped apart again and again. Jacob tore his garments and tied sackcloths around his waist. He mourned many days for his son. All his sons, this is the verse that the Orach Chaim addresses over here as it pertains to our discussion. All his sons and all his daughters tried to console him, but he was unable to be consoled. He said, "I will go down to my grave while I'm still mourning for my son, for I will never be consoled." Jacob's, okay. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh, the Holy Orach Chaim says the following. He says, the verse, by stating that all his sons and daughters, and Rashi brings from the Talmud, daughters, it could also be referring to his daughter-in-laws, meaning the entire family came to console Jacob and he refused to be consoled or comforted. What's the deeper insight over here? Says the Orach Chaim the following. He says, they all came and they said to Jacob, they said to him, "Look, we're all here." You know, when you go, and we've all been to Shivas, we've all been to Shivas where the mourner, of course, is sitting because they lost a loved one. And it's a time of deep pain. And we always try to find words of comfort. Sometimes we're successful, and sometimes, we say things that we shouldn't be saying. It's just we're human beings, but we want to, as good people, we want to provide comfort. So, it's common to try to direct a person's attention to what they do have rather than what they lost. You're blessed, you have children, you have grandchildren, you have siblings, you have cousins, you have good friends. You try to do so, whether, of course you have to know when is the right time, but that's setting that aside, but that's one of the things you try to do. So here, says the Orach Chaim, by the fact that all these sons and daughters, sort of the entire Jacob's beautiful family, and he had almost 70 grandchildren, so he had at that point, probably less, this goes back 22 years, but he had a family. And the message they were trying to send to Jacob, okay, Yosef is gone, okay, one down, but you have a beautiful family, that should be your consolation. That was the message, says Orach Chaim, they were trying to send. And Jacob is vayima'en lihitnachem, he refused to be comforted. The reason he refused to be comforted is because Jacob was saying, I only have one Yosele, I only have one Shimon. Yes, I appreciate and I'm blessed that I have a wonderful, beautiful family, but I only have one Yosef. The deeper message that and the core not only belief but foundation. Remember, this is the beginning of the Jewish nation as a people. The 12 tribes, we have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, but the first time we start becoming a nation with the 12 tribes that go down to Egypt, and we become a nation, we become a people. Jacob was telling us we are not going to be a people if we approach with that attitude. In order for us to be a people, we have to understand and realize that we only have one Yosele. One individual is as critical and as important as everybody else, which even in Jewish law has its expression. where if our enemies come, surround the city and say to us, give us so and so, give us one individual, or we will kill you all. We're not allowed to give them the one individual. There are certain, like every Jewish law, there are certain details and qualifications, but that's the overall theme. How it plays out now in the Hamas war is a discussion. We've spoken about this in the past. But the general message that Yaakov was telling to the new nation that is being born through the 12 tribes, that's not a comfort by you all being over here. That's wonderful and beautiful. But Yosele, my Yosele is missing. That is why later, the only reason Yaakov, after the brothers are going down to Egypt, and they come back and they say the leader of Egypt is telling us that we must bring down Benjamin. And Yaakov refuses. Why does he refuse? Is because he's not convinced that his children have gotten the message that one child, one individual equals all. And if they don't have that ingrained in their kishkis, in their essence, in their core, I cannot let Benjamin go. It's only when Judah says to Jacob, I take full responsibility, I will bring him back to you, that Yaakov says, if that's the case, if Benjamin to you is everything, then and only then can I start to trust you. And let's take this a step further. It is clear and obvious that Judah got the message, Yehuda got the message, because after Joseph implanted the goblet, his magical goblet into Benjamin, Judah could have very easily had a bunch of excuses, which, by the way, that's one of the difference between a leader and someone who's not a leader. Judah has emerged until today. The Messianic dynasty comes from Judah as the real leader. He had all the valid excuses. He could have come back to Jacob and said, look, I tried. What do you want me to do? Benjamin is a thief. He went ahead. He stole. Yes, I took responsibility for him, but I can't control the fact that he went ahead as a thief and stole. How stupid can you be? Or he could have said to his father, what do you want me to stand up to Joseph, the superpower, the Mishnah Lamelech, the second to the king of the superpower of its day? You want me to stand up to the mighty U.S. Army to save this one child? First of all, he's a criminal. Second of all, it's just impossible. He could have done so. But no, the Torah tells us, and once you look a little deeper into Rashi and the Medrash, Judah was fully ready to put his life on the line, literally. And that is when the viceroy, acting viceroy Joseph, who did whatever he did just to bring the family together, realized that if Judah is willing to do so, representing his brothers, that means that now they're not there to say, okay, you know what? One down, the rest, we're here to go. Joseph says, now I can reveal myself to my brothers. When I could see the self-sacrifice that they're putting down for one Jewish child, and he says, Ki avdecha orav esanar, me your servant Judah, I took responsibility for this child. I will stop at nothing to bring this child back to my father, to his people. That's when Yosef says, now the family is healed. Now the family has what it takes to go down into Egypt, the most bitter exile, representing the diaspora of all time. When this becomes part of who we are, that one individual child, one individual fellow, we're ready to put our life on the line, that's when we will survive and overcome and thrive in the most difficult of times. I saw So we asked the question. The question we asked is what? But the first question he asked is, "Ha'od avichai, is my father still alive?" Why was that the question? He knew he was alive, and we gave one answer. Rabbi Soloveitchik, Rabbi Yoshi Ber Soloveitchik, the great scholar from the Brisk dynasty family, and it's available on YouTube. A recording. I mean, he's deceased, but he has a very beautiful insight. He says that when Yosef asked him, "Ha'od avichai, is my father still alive?" he was asking, not only is my father alive in the literal sense, he was also asking, "Ha'od avichai, are you connected to your father?" Father represents tradition. Father represents the teachings, the wisdom of our past generations. Father represents God Almighty. Ha'od avichai, he was saying, are you just over here trying to defend Benjamin without any connection to our tradition, to the past, to our roots? Do you value our roots? Do you value the teachings of our father? I go sometimes to bar mitzvahs or bat mitzvahs or weddings. I speak to grandparents. And I see sometimes, they either dress or behave in ways that is more becoming to their grandchildren, teenagers, in the interest of or desire to be cool, to be accepted, to be liked, to have a relationship with their grandchildren. And some of it is understandable, but that's not your role. Your key role is the other way around. Your key role is that you should be there as a parent or grandparent to pass on, to be a role model, to give over the conviction, the beautiful conviction of our tradition, of our heritage. But in the context more to what we are discussing, or more connected to that theme, it's very nice. It's very nice to to talk about the importance and the unity of a people. I read that, with the war now with Hamas, war planners plan that every day a certain amount of soldiers will sadly be killed. Those are war planners who have to work with statistics. It's so painful to even hear that. And I'm not saying this as either a condemnation or non-condemnation. I'm only saying this, that there's, when we view a member of our people, we have to, a member of our nation, we have to view each one as it's the only Yosela. And our dedication to that has to be in the utmost way. How do we get there? This is all nice, you could say maybe sort of theoretical words. How do we get there? How do we get there? So this perhaps is also the deeper meaning of Ha'od Avichai, is my father still alive? And here I want to bring in to this discussion what the Alter Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad movement, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. In Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, in chapter 32, he discusses the famous mitzvah of love your fellow as yourself. And commentaries ask, how could you love your fellow as yourself? And there's explanations given to that. The Alter Rebbe there in Tanya says that, if you want to achieve loving your fellow as you love yourself, because in order to truly, genuinely care about someone else as yourself, so that you recognize and realize and act in a way that there's only one Yosela, or there's only one Shimon, there's only one Benjamin. In politics, they look at numbers, statistics. I lose one. Who cares? You need the numbers, and If I have the numbers here, fine, not, I go elsewhere. But no, we're establishing a nation, a people. There's one Yosef, there's one Benjamin. So the Alter Rebbe in Tanya says the following. He says, we are a body, we are soul. We have a neshama, we have a soul, we have a body. He says, if your life is centered around your body, around materialism, which in turn is really all about self, you cannot achieve the mitzvah of Avat Yisrael, of loving a fellow as yourself. Not possible, because that other person is not you. But if you live a life of your soul, of your neshama, and the Alter Rebbe there uses the expression that on a soul level, from a neshama, we're all a part of the Almighty, we're all one. The more you could lift yourself above self, above materialism, above indulgence, and you could refine yourself, dedicate yourself, and connect to your soul, the more you can truly love a fellow as yourself. And perhaps that's the deeper meaning that Joseph said, Hayesh lachem av. Sorry, Ha'od avi chai, is my father still alive? The Father over here he's referring to on a deeper level is our Father in heaven. And therefore, is he alive? Is he alive to us? Is he alive to me? Is he alive to you? On the deepest level. If that's the case, then I know that your dedication, your care, your love, your self-sacrifice for Benjamin is real, it's wholesome, it's sincere, it's lasting. And then we're ready to go into Egypt and survive what we need to survive, because we will come out better than how we went in. We will overcome, we will thrive. We will prevail, and we will grow. Let me diverge over here. Let me digress somewhat to the political discussion. And I want to come back to this discussion, because this is the more important discussion of who we are as a people. But it's the headline, it's the title of the class, I want to discuss it. So, I just typed into Google. Hold on a second. Why is this not showing? Let me say, no thanks. I opened up in Google. I did a search called American Political Divide. And I looked over here, and I opened up a site. I don't know the site really. I mean, it might be a very known site. I don't really know. It's called Axios. Is it a reliable site? You could tell me thumbs up, some thumbs down. Today, everybody has an agenda. But I'm looking over here and looking at some statistics from 2023, from August 7th, 2023. And here there is like sort of the divides in this country on some of the, I guess we would call hot button issues, passionate issues. It's not all the passionate issues. He leaves out here some of the cultural issues. But I'm looking over here. Okay, gun laws should be stricter. This is breakdown of Republicans versus Democrats. Okay, so 84% of Democrats think gun laws should be stricter. 31% of Republicans think gun laws should be stricter. Okay, I guess no surprise there, right? Worry great deal or fear amount about global warming. Now again, I'm just reading over here what their methodology on reaching these conclusions, whether it's honest, whether it's straight, whether it's not. Ich weiß nicht, I don't know. So I'm telling you where I get the source from, and you could take it or leave it. Okay, worry great deal or fear amount about global warming. 87% of Democrats worry great deal or fear amount about global warming. Okay, abortion, another passionate issue in this country, should be legal under any circumstance. That's the way the question is framed. 59% of Democrats say that it should be legal under any circumstance. I'm just pointing out that it's interesting that apparently even Democrats are less so certain about this, or less pro this, in comparison to gun laws and worry about the economy, worry about global warming. There the numbers were 84%, 87%. Here the numbers are 59%. Okay, maybe there's other underlying issues over here. Again, I'm just reading. Now, federal government has too much power. So here the Democrats are of the opinion, here the Republicans, the colors change over here. The Republicans are of the opinion that 73% that the federal government has too much power. Now, Democrats are 31%. I'm just giving my own commentary. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I mean, it's 2023. Right now, the Democrats are in power. I wonder if this same poll was taken when Republicans in power, if it would be reverse. Is there a consistency in this opinion, or is it just remember who is in power? Not sure. I'm sure there was probably a statistic like this done in 2018 or 2019, and maybe there we could compare. But again, this is not a deep analysis. This is not a class I really want to, about politics per se. It's more about people who disagree getting along and caring for each other. Okay, immigration should be decreased. 58% of Republicans say it should be decreased. 18% of Democrats say it should be decreased. So I guess most Democrats feel that it should not be decreased. And finally, the third question, the sixth, question number 6 that I see in this particular poll, completely or somewhat satisfied with K through 12 education in US. 51% of Democrats say yes, 30% of Republicans say yes. And here again, by the way, this is the lowest number I see of Democrats who are satisfied, 51%. So maybe that shows you that there's a problem over here. So here, these are some of the, hot button issues. It doesn't say here about economy, who thinks could be better to handle. So these are all political questions in elections. I don't really discuss politics in this class for various reasons. Here I want to more discuss or address sort of, can the divide in this country be healed? I'm not a prophet, and I'm not a world psychological or psychologist expert on whether it could be healed or not. I can give you a personal opinion, and it's worth as much as it's worth. We all have an opinion. And then you can put it into the shredder. But I could say like this, that taking sort of the model of what we just discussed, usually the way to bridge divides can be done in various ways. Bridge divides can be done by finding common ground. Bridge divides can be by highlighting those things that are maybe important to both of those who are on opposing sides, and finding something important that they could work for. Or to say this within, again, the context of the parsha, it's a limited context of the parsha, because it's not totally the same. But if we can introduce something greater than all of us, and something that touches us at the core, in this case as Americans, then we can sort of ignite that, bring that out, and then that can hopefully be more powerful and allow us to disagree in a more healthy way, rather than the unhealthy, concerned way that it is developing. And again, going back to, there are examples for that. There are examples. There's in Hasidus, there's a discussion. It says, Oseh Shalom Bimromav. We all know the song. Oseh Shalom Bimromav. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. Right? We know the song. Everybody knows the song. So what does it mean, Oseh Shalom Bimromav? He makes peace amongst those on high, in the heavens. Bimromav, Marom, in the heaven. He brings peace amongst them. What does that mean? So, Oseh Shalom Bimromav, in Kabbalah, the teachings of Kabbalah, it says that he makes peace between the opposing angels. There are angels who are the prosecuting angels. There are angels who are defending angels. And he makes peace. Or in Kabbalistic languages, there are angels like Michael, the famous angel, who is associated with the attribute of chesed, of kindness. There are angels who are like the angel of Gabriel, who is the angel of harshness, and he's able to bring peace amongst them. And how is he able to bring peace amongst them? By introducing a level greater than both of them, where they have the humility for that which is greater. The example given that you could sometimes have amongst ministers advising the king their opinion, but once the king asserts himself and issues his opinion, everybody falls into line because of the bitul, to use the language of Hasidus, because of the humility and the fear and the humbleness that they have for the king. Everybody's individualness falls off, and they unite in wholeheartedly in bringing into fruition the king's verdict and decree. So to bring this home over here, Hayesh lachem ach. I'm sorry, Ha'od avi chai. Yosef is telling us, every one of us, there was no greater divide between Joseph and his brothers. They sold him. They were ready to kill him. And yet they came around, even though there was such a deep resentment. And the way they were able to do that is to tap into something greater than themselves. Ha'od avichai, avi, the father, represents a level that's greater than all of us. And we can put away our own ego, our own self-interests, our own perspectives, and we could tap in and allow something greater than us to enter, to inspire us, or to kindle us, or to awaken that deep core, what we call pintala yid, the essence of who we are, that Jewish pintala, that Jewish soul, or the humanity's soul. If we can, that which unites us all, we are all created in God's image. When you're able to truly tap into that, that's when we can get beyond our divisions. We can even disagree and yet be truly loving and caring to each other. This is a lesson for us as a people. This is a lesson for us as a nation. When the nations, it's not a secret. I said right away in the beginning of the class, it's going to be a tough year. I shouldn't say it's going to be a tough year, because Hashem could make things turn around in a moment, and things can improve. As the prophet says, Chuat Hashem keheref ayin, the salvation of God is in the blink of an eye. But until that happens, and hopefully sooner and immediate, both on a sort of patriotic American level and on a Jewish national level here in Israel, abroad with anti-Semitism, there are those, whether it's media outlets, politicians, talk show hosts, they make their money. Money is a huge factor that drives this, by keeping us separate. They make their money that way. And the way media search engines are designed is to create an echo chamber, to give you that which you want to hear. And all it does is further ignite or further flame those passions, or those feelings of division and separation. Turn it off. Listen to science, listen to Torah, listen. It makes no difference. It makes no difference. All it does is cause more hate and more strife. It doesn't do anything. It's a waste of time. And I'm talking to all of us. I'm not talking at you. I really am not. Because I'm also guilty of it. It's very enticing. They know how to do it. They're professionals. They get paid for it, and they make lots of money. Focus on that which is greater than us. That which is at the positivity, the holiness which is at our core. Allow that to come forward. That is not to say that you can't have differences of opinion and things that you disagree with. And there are times, which I don't want to focus on, there are times and people or individuals that need to be rejected. For example, the Talmud gives some of those examples. Habal lahargecha, someone who's physically coming to kill you, like Hamas. Hashkem baharge, go ahead and kill them first. So there are exceptions to that, but by and large, society that we live in, the people around us, are not that way for the most part. So let's ask ourselves that penetrating question that Joseph asked his brothers at the climax of that emotional encounter. Ha'od avi chai, is my father still alive? Is the father and all that it represents, our beautiful tradition, the things that you heard from your parents, our Father in heaven, that higher, deeper spark, that core of your soul, the goodness that Hashem blew within mankind when He created mind, is it alive? What am I doing to allow it to penetrate and to be activated within my thoughts and my actions? Learning Torah is a great idea to achieve that. It's a question we have to ask ourselves. And by extension, we have to know that, especially with our own immediate biological children, if God gave you a child, then God made you responsible for that child. Like Judah said, to the extent of self-sacrifice, have you taken that responsibility? Have I taken that responsibility to the level that Judah understood it needs to be taken for us to be a healthy people, a nation that could overcome all difficulties, as we see tremendous unity that's going on in Israel and beyond? Let the words of the Parsha inspire us and give us the strength to start somewhere, start at one point to implement or to connect to those ideals, to this thought, and we will all be happier and better, a better society, a better person, a healthier person for that. And as I always say, most importantly, we will then be fulfilling the purpose of our soul in this world, where we have our responsibility to ourselves, to our family, to our children, to our community, our society, our country. By taking the message of this parsha seriously, we will be successful in doing so. Everybody have a fantastic week. Thank you for listening. Please share these words of Torah. Only blessings and good health to all of us.